Welcome to NTD News Today. Here are today's top stories. The House will vote on a funding package to end the partial shutdown. What Republican and Democrat leaders say about funding for the DHS. President Trump is hosting Colombian President Gustavo Petro for a White House meeting today. It's after months of high tension between the two leaders. Russia launching a massive overnight strike on Ukraine, firing hundreds of drones and missiles as NATO's chief visits Kyiv, and peace talks are scheduled. Disney names a new CEO. He'll take over from current chief executive Bob Iger in March. NASA has delayed its Artemis 2 moon launch until March. It's after encountering some issues during a key testing.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
And some breaking news coming in. House lawmakers have voted to advance a package providing full-year funding to 6 departments, plus a 2-week continuing resolution for DHS funding. The funding package already passed the Senate. Then the House will vote on its final passage later this afternoon. Here's House Speaker Mike Johnson on funding the DHS.
So we have 2 weeks now to negotiate in good faith on both sides. The White House and Senate Democrats are going to engage in that, but the House Republicans are as well. We have to make sure we maintain the important parameters here. We can't go down the road of amnesty. You can't, in any way, lighten the enforcement requirement of federal immigration law. That's what the American people demand and deserve. We want dangerous, illegal criminals to be sent out of the country, and they've been very successful at that.
And now the funding package would end the partial government shutdown now in its 4th day. It would provide full-year funding for the Departments of War, Labor, Health and Human Services, Education, Transportation, and Housing and Urban Development. The House will vote on funding for these departments as one measure, not in different parts, while DHS funding will be a separate vote. Republicans can only afford to lose one vote, with some Democrats expected to back the measure, but many other Democrats, including leaders, have said they will withhold support from the package.
Our caucus is united in demanding 4 common-sense reforms. Body cameras must be required by law, and masks must come off. Judicial warrants are a requirement, not a suggestion. We must have independent investigations to prosecute agents responsible for carrying out abuses. And finally, there needs to be clear guidelines on use of force. Democrats won't rest until we enact real change in this lawless agency.
And now Democrat leaders have said they will withhold support from DHS funding unless the agency agrees with their demands for reform. Johnson said that obstructing DHS funding would not impact ICE operations, though. Rather, it would shut down FEMA and TSA. If the 2-week continuing resolution for the DHS passes, the House will then negotiate full-year funding for the department. President Trump has endorsed the funding package, saying the government needs to reopen. The package will head to his desk for signature if it passes the House. And now President Trump is meeting with Colombian President Gustavo Petro today at the White House as we speak, in fact. The talks aim to repair strained ties after a year of public clashes and political differences.
I mean, he's been very nice over the last month or two. He was certainly critical before that, but somehow after the Venezuelan raid, he became very nice. He changed his attitude very much. So, I look forward to seeing him. He's coming in. We're going to be talking about drugs because tremendous amounts of drugs come out of his country. And I look forward to seeing. We're going to have a good meeting. Yeah.
Petro's Washington agenda also includes political, academic, and business events. And the U.S. is working to rebuild diplomatic relations with Venezuela. Laura Dogu is the United States' top envoy to Venezuela. She recently arrived in Caracas as the Trump administration aims to reopen an embassy there for the first time in nearly 7 years.
Our presence here today marks a new chapter, and I'm ready to begin work. Let's get to it.
Dogu previously was the ambassador to Honduras and later Nicaragua. She says her team wants to implement a 3-phase plan in Venezuela. The first step is the stabilization of the country and restoration of safety. Second, the recovery of the economy for the benefit of the Venezuelan people. And third, the transition toward a Venezuela that is friendly, stable, prosperous, and democratic. And now Russia has fired about 450 long-range drones and 70 missiles at Ukraine in a major attack overnight. The barrage came as NATO General Secretary Mark Rutte visited Kyiv in a show of support, and just a day before Russia and Ukraine were due to attend U.S.-brokered talks in Abu Dhabi. Ukraine says the bombardment hit at least 5 regions of the country. It included a record number of 32 ballistic missiles, specifically taking aim at the power grid. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky today accusing Moscow of, quote, taking advantage of the coldest days of winter to terrorize people. Temperatures in Kyiv fell to -4 degrees overnight. A private power company said it was the heaviest barrage in the electricity network this year, with at least 10 people wounded. Zelensky said the work of Ukraine's negotiating team in the peace talks will now be adjusted after the attack. And at a joint press conference with NATO Secretary Mark Rutte, Zelensky urged allies to send more air defense supplies to bring maximum pressure on Russia.
The Russians once again disregarded the efforts of the American side. There was a request from the U.S. president to refrain from strikes on energy facilities and critical infrastructure. We will contact the American side regarding this matter. I expect that our partners will not remain silent about what is happening. It is critical for everyone to continue to support the defense of our country and the protection of our people.
But I'm absolutely sure that the Americans will have noticed. They see what happened. They will hear this. They will take this also what it is. And that is an attack, again, on innocent civilians, on civilian infrastructure, which I think is unacceptable.
And DHS Secretary Noem says that ICE agents will start using body cameras in Minneapolis. Noem said the cameras are being deployed immediately and that the program will be expanded nationwide as funding is available. The announcement comes after Senate Democrats and President Trump reached a deal to temporarily extend DHS funding for 2 weeks. That funding bill is currently being considered in the House. Here's the president commenting on Noem's decision.
Well, it wasn't my decision. I leave it to her. They generally tend to be good for law enforcement because people can't lie about what's happening. So it's, generally speaking, I think 80% good for law enforcement. But if she wants to do that, I'm okay with it.
And meanwhile, the Hennepin County Medical Examiner has ruled the official cause of death for Alex Preddy a homicide, citing, quote, multiple gunshot wounds. Preddy was shot during a confrontation with federal officers on January 24th in Minnesota. And then another decision, a federal judge has lifted an order that had required federal officials to preserve evidence in the death of Preddy. At the request of state and county attorneys, the temporary restraining order had just been issued hours after Preddy was shot last month. Judge Eric Trostad said the record now shows federal officials are unlikely to tamper with evidence as the case proceeds. State officials had complained they were denied access to the scene despite obtaining a court order. The judge acknowledged evidence may have been lost early on, but that attributed that to safety concerns at the scene. The separate federal reviews into the shooting are also underway by the Justice Department and the FBI. And a federal appeals court ruled that ending temporary protected status for Haitians in Venezuela here in America was illegal. It says Homeland Security Secretary Noem exceeded her authority with the terminations. The appellate panel says she tried to override the power of Congress. The protected status was due to expire today, but this ruling upholds a lower court decision. Haitians got temporary protected status after a catastrophic earthquake back in 2010 and a subsequent economic and political crisis. Noem argues that conditions have improved in the two countries, so their TPS designations are no longer necessary. And Walt Disney has named a new CEO. The head of Disney theme parks, Josh D'Amaro, will take the position. He'll take over from Bob Iger for the company's annual shareholder meeting in March. Disney also named entertainment co-chief Dana Walden as chief content officer and president. Now, the current CEO, Bob Iger, has been trying to retire for years, After stepping down, the CEO returned in 2022 to replace his hand-picked successor, Bob Chapek, as his business slowed during the pandemic. DeMauro is a decades-long company veteran. He's leading Disney's push into the Middle East with the theme park in the United Arab Emirates capital, Abu Dhabi. Once completed, the location will mark Disney's first major new park in nearly a decade. And still to come, China is under scrutiny after a global baby formula recall is tied to a Wuhan Biotech supplier. Europe now moving to tighten safety limits. Welcome back. I'm Paul Graney. Gold and silver staged a sharp rebound today after a historic sell-off. The upswing lifted global mining stocks and precious metal funds. Spot gold climbing more than 5% to near $4,900 an ounce, while silver surged over 9%. The rally helping push major mining shares higher in London and boosting U.S.-listed silver ETFs ahead of the opening bell. Analysts say long-term demand for gold and silver remains strong. And with us now is Chase Turner, CEO of SD Bullion. Chase, great to see you. Thanks so much for coming on this afternoon. Chase, figure this out for me. Gold, especially, supposed to be a safe, frankly, boring investment. What's behind all the price swings?
Yeah, it's not so boring these days, is it, Paul? I mean, it's up over 60-70% just this last year compared to an S&P that's up to only 16%. There's a lot going on in the gold industry right now. There has been for the last several years, and I think we're just kind of seeing everything catch up at this point as central banks have been buying at a record clip now since 2020. But, you know, silver's a lot more volatile than gold has been, as we saw last Friday with the massive drop of 30% in silver.
Well, on that, Chase, okay, it's been volatile, right? But generally the trend has been pretty good for anybody invested in gold and silver. You mentioned central banks. Give us a lay of the land. What do you put this increase over the past year down to?
Yeah, look, if we go back, like you said, on the long-term trend line, it's always been successful. I have an ounce of gold here, actually. And when I got started in the industry in 2009, this was around 900 fiat dollars an ounce. Today, like you said, it's closer to 5,000. But what I really look at, Paul, and I think what we try to have our clients and customers think about is not necessarily the fiat price, but how does gold compare to other assets over time? I just looked before I jumped on here. If we go back just to 2020, it took roughly 200 ounces of gold to buy an average median house in the U.S. Today, that number is down to 90. And if you go back and track these types of data points over time, the story is always the same. Gold preserves your purchasing power and protects your wealth over time better than any other monetary asset that's out there.
On that, of course, as you said, that's incredible to hear the increase in price. But Chase, one red flag, I think, for me, was in the recent collapse in prices that we saw just at the beginning of this weekend of last week. It seems to me that there's enormous amount of leverage in the system. That is, people or institutions are, in essence, using credit to buy these metals, and in turn, that's pumping the price.
Yes, of course, that's correct. So the price that you show on your TV screen, that's a paper price that's traded by the major banks, the major institutions of the world. That's not actually the physical market that somebody like myself at SD Bullion works inside. We work inside the physical market, which for us, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. That's always the way that we've looked at the precious metal space. And so you have these big paper swings, but that's not actually what's going on behind the scenes of the physical. You know, I got a 100-ounce silver bar here, for example. Okay, these right now are very hard to get your hands on because the physical is so backed up. There's so many manufacturers that are backed up because of all the demand that we've seen. So even though you see a paper price like we saw last Friday of gold fall 10%, smart investors, smart physical buyer investors are taking that opportunity. They're coming into the market and they're buying physical gold and silver right now, Paul, at record clips. And so what you're seeing is a total detachment. These guys with the paper silver market, they're using derivatives. They're manipulating the game to their own favor. it has no direct correlation to what you actually see in the real physical world between mining, refining, manufacturing, and to the retail side. It's a total. I've seen this several times over my career, where you have these massive prices of sell-offs, but yet on the physical side, you have all these people buying physical in record demand. And it just goes to show you that there's no true price discovery yet. We all believe it's coming. We do believe that these exchanges over the next handful of years and maybe into the next decade are going to have real trouble supporting the price discovery mechanism that everybody's come to use, because the reality is they don't have the metal behind the paper trades that they're making. And at some point, you're going to see true price discovery in the physical realm. And I think that's what we're getting close to. And I think that's why you're seeing prices go so much higher in metals, is because we're getting a much truer physical price now instead of this manipulated paper price that unfortunately we have to work within.
Right. I've heard for a long time that the price of gold and silver is artificially kept low for various reasons. Now, as I said, the one red flag recently that I saw, that massive price collapse, indicates that perhaps there's some people trying to prop it up as well. So as you said, this will get settled one way or the other eventually, Chase. Chase, okay, you mentioned physical metal people are buying. Have you seen a big increase in orders from regular retail investors during the recent rally over there at SD Bullion?
Yeah, so that's mainly who we deal with, is the retail customer. We ship directly to your door, right? We're talking to the end consumer. Last Friday, whenever you saw the paper price of metal drop the way it did, we had a record day at SD Bullion. To put some numbers in perspective, we saw as much revenue volume last Friday as we did in the entire month of January in 2025.
When
so
the price dropped, Chase, you said when the price dropped, people came in to buy. Is that what you said?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yeah, of course. I mean, physical metal investors, they know that the paper price is manipulated. They take that they see that as an opportunity. In fact, there was so many people that were excited to see the price drop that much because they knew that they were going to be able to go buy physical at a much cheaper rate for the long-term hold, which is what our customers, what physical investors are interested in. They're interested to the long-term preservation. So if you see a drop in 10%, 30%, like we saw in silver, we had a record day here by leaps and bounds at SD Bullion of physical retail precious metals investors trying to get their hands on as much physical as they can before the next big rally.
So in a word, Chase, what are they buying? What's the popular products?
Yeah, bullion like this. You got gold coins. Hopefully you can see on my screen. You got gold bars, 100-ounce gold bars. These are bullion products that we specialize at SD Bullion. These are what people want to buy and stack, because the way that it works is when you're buying physical, you want to get the best price you can, just like on anything else. And there's two prices when you buy physical, Paul. There's the paper price that we've been talking about, but there's the premium price, the cost to pull it out of the ground, to manufacture it, to refine it, to turn it into one of these beautiful coins or bars. And that's called a premium price. You want to get the best premium price you can, and that's normally going to be in these bullion products that we sell at SD Bullion. If you're out there buying physical, that's the one thing you want to be careful of. Make sure you're not overpaying for a coin that's, make sure you're not paying double the price for a coin, because unfortunately there's people out there that will take advantage of retail people that are new to buying gold and silver, and they will 100%, do a double markup on them. And it's unfortunate that happens. So you got to have a reputable dealer. Make sure you're buying metal as close to the silver spot price as you possibly can.
That's Chase Turner over at SD Bullion, watching the not so boring anymore gold and silver markets. Chase, thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Have a great day.
And President Trump today said his administration is seeking $1 billion in damages from Harvard University as part of an ongoing federal investigation. No final settlement has been reached with the university after months of negotiations. But on Post on Truth Social, Trump wrote that Harvard will have to live with the consequences of what he called their wrongdoings, accusing the institution of past anti-Semitism. Trump said the case should be criminal rather than civil. The comments came after a New York Times report suggested that the administration has dropped its demand for cash, a claim that Trump dismissed. Harvard previously sued after federal grants were cut, and a judge ruled that some of those terminations were unlawful. Several Ivy League schools, including Columbia and Brown, have reached financial agreements with the administration over allegations of anti-Semitism. We reached out to Harvard for comment, but didn't receive a response just yet. And now the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, is defending her presence at a Fulton County, Georgia elections office. The visit occurred while FBI agents carried out a court-authorized search warrant. Gabbard says that President Trump asked her to observe the operation, adding that she has the authority to take action related to election integrity. Gabbard says that interference in elections is a threat to the republic and a national security threat at that. She said neither she nor the president directed agents during the search, but the FBI says the warrant is tied to a federal lawsuit seeking voting records from the 2020 election. Some Democratic lawmakers are criticizing Gabbard's involvement, raising concerns about the role of intelligence agencies in domestic matters. Gabbard says officials must determine whether foreign or domestic interference has occurred to protect the integrity of future elections. We'll keep you updated. And now, former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton have now agreed to testify amid a congressional investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. However, House Majority Leader Steve Scalise said they're still not in compliance after being subpoenaed.
They have until noon today to fully comply. Otherwise, we will move contempt tomorrow against the Clintons. And again, that was a bipartisan vote out of committee to say that nobody's above the law. The Clintons have to comply with the subpoena like everybody else. I think it was Jamie Raskin who said, when you're subpoenaed by Congress, you have to show up. We'll see how he votes on that tomorrow if the Clintons fail to comply. But we're going to keep doing our job.
The Clintons have criticized the probe as partisan and initially refused to testify about their relationship with Epstein. However, the spokesperson said yesterday that they now plan to cooperate after negotiations over the terms of the testimony. The House Oversight Committee voted to proceed with criminal contempt of Congress charges last month, and if held in contempt, the Clintons would face the possibility of a substantial fine and jail time if the Justice Department decides to prosecute. And now Tyler Robinson, the man accused of killing Charlie Kirk, and his attorneys will be back in court today. Witness testimony will continue over their claim that the entire prosecution team should be disqualified. Today, members of the Utah County's Attorney's Office, as well as the Deputy Prosecutor's adult daughter, are expected to take the stand. Robinson's attorneys have argued that the personal relationship between the Deputy Prosecutor and his daughter, who witnessed the shooting, is a conflict of interest. Utah prosecutors say there's no conflict, and they don't plan to rely on testimony from the Deputy Prosecutor's daughter. The defense is also expected to argue against having cameras in the courtroom, as well as any clips of the graphic videos of the killing. And now the search continues for Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie. Homicide detectives were sent to Nancy Guthrie's home after she went missing over the weekend. She's not been located, and investigators are now expressing grave concern. Here are the details about the case.
Police in Arizona making a bold claim Monday. They say Today Show host Savannah Guthrie's mother, 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie's disappearance is no accident. It's a crime.
I want to stress to you, and it is really important, Miss Guthrie, Nancy Guthrie, is of great sound mind. This is not a dementia related. She is as sharp as a tack.
Guthrie was last seen in her Tucson, Arizona home on Saturday night. When Guthrie did not show up to church Sunday morning, a church member called her family.
At some time earlier that morning, they got a call from somebody at the church who said, hey, your mom's not here. The family went to the house.
Investigators say that it does not appear that she left the home on her own, and they found her cell phone. Police say they also found evidence that suggests a crime had been committed and saw things at the home that were, quote, concerning.
There were circumstances on scene that we believe are suspicious in nature, I think is the best way to put it.
They would not say what that evidence is, although they did say they don't have any indication that the public is in danger. Police say they are canvassing the area and are looking for security camera footage to help with the investigation.
And an added concern in the race against the clock is that Guthrie is said to have mobility issues without key medication, the daily medication she needs to survive. In a statement, Savannah Guthrie thanked law enforcement. She also said she appreciates the messages of support that she's received. Again, we'll keep you updated. And now China is under scrutiny over contaminated baby food. A global infant formula recall has traced its source to a biotech company in Wuhan, China. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the case and new steps to address it.
3 major dairy groups, Nestle, Lactalis, and Danone, pulled baby formula products over concerns about cereulide, a toxin made by a food poisoning bacteria. The French Agriculture Ministry said a Chinese company, Biotech, was the producer of arachidonic acid, or ARA oil, at the source of the contamination, according to a Reuters report. Nestle says it has recalled infant formula in nearly 60 countries, one of the largest recalls in its history. Brands affected include SMA, Beba, Nan, and Alphamino, with national alerts issued across Europe, Latin America, Africa, the Middle East, and the Asia-Pacific region. Health officials say symptoms tied to the toxin can include vomiting, diarrhea, or unusual lethargy. Signs may appear within 30 minutes to 6 hours after exposure and typically resolve within 24 hours. Biotech is a major supplier to both international dairy companies and leading Chinese producers, highlighting the global reach of the supply chain. Europe is now tightening its response. The European Food Safety Authority has advised a new maximum threshold for the toxin cereulide in infant formula, proposing a limit of 0.014 micrograms per kilogram of body weight for infants. The agency says very young babies process substances differently and require added protection, with vomiting identified as the key short-term symptom used to set the guideline. Some French producers have already withdrawn additional products following the recommendation. Infant formula safety remains a sensitive issue in China after the 2008 melamine scandal, which affected an estimated 30 million children. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
And still to come, French prosecutors have raided the headquarters of social media platform X. CEO Elon Musk has also been summoned for questioning. We have an update. And from Vancouver to Toronto, Canadian protesters say daily life is getting harder and more expensive. They're also warning against the political risks connected to the Chinese Communist Party. We have that and more after the break. I'm Paul Graney. This is World Watch. Today, French police raided offices of Elon Musk's social media platform X. The raid is linked to a year-long investigation into suspected abuse of algorithms and suspected fraudulent data extraction by X or its executives. The Paris prosecutor's office said it's now widening the probe into the AI chatbot known as Grok. The complaints focus on the generation of deep fake-style sexualized images, with Musk and former CEO Linda Yaccarino summoned to a hearing on April 20th. The company previously denied any wrongdoing and in July called the French investigation, quote, politically motivated. And Greenland today saying it was hopeful and optimistic it would find common ground with the United States. The Arctic island says it is important that its red lines be respected, with President Trump, of course, intensifying calls for U.S. control over the island at the start of the year, citing national security concerns related to Russia and China. The president has since backed away from threats of force and said he had secured total U.S. access to Greenland in a NATO deal. Details of the deal, though, still remain unclear.
What we have been going through have been intense and hectic, and there still are. While we are working hard to address and solve the issues that has put Greenland on the global agenda, it is important to acknowledge and appreciate the support and solidarity with us.
And now Japanese soldiers armed with shovels are fighting to clear record snowfall that has buried northern Japan. Nippon TV reports that about 1,000 snowplows were used to clear snow from 2,300 miles of roads in Sapporo. Across the country, more than 100 people have been seriously injured amid heavy snowfall since January 20th. Japan's disaster management agency now reporting that 30 people have died. The snowy conditions come ahead of a national election on Sunday. And now world leaders, advocates, and faith communities are gathering in Washington, D.C. for the International Religious Freedom Summit. Its goal is to assess the state of religious liberty in 2026 and identify where it faces the greatest challenge. NTD's Chris Bobb has more.
At the International Religious Freedom Summit held in Washington, D.C., a panel described on Monday how early signs of religious persecution can become normalized. Specifically, panelists examined how patterns of repression can become embedded in laws, practices, and daily life. They cited the Chinese regime as an example.
It first starts off with the same playbook. You have propaganda, and then it starts going into the courts. Police start getting, bounty rewards for catching religious believers, and then it goes all the way to the prison systems and even to hospitals with organ harvesting. I think sanctioning the Chinese officials as far down the rung that we can go is an important step. As long as they're local, they're somewhere in the county level, I think that hurts a lot harder than if you go after Xi Jinping. If the persecution of Falun Gong stopped when he was imprisoned and when international media and eyes were on him, then Simon Zhang's mother would still be alive and Pang Xun would still be alive as well.
The IRF co-chairs warn that when a regime like the Chinese Communist Party normalizes these red flags, people of faith face severe and lasting harm.
Red flags appear pretty early. You start to see governments make statements about certain groups as being, this is questionable, or they start tilting their media. It's like they're preparing their society and their country to persecute this group.
Whether it is in a country like China, the normalization of the persecution, for example, of the Falun Gong community or Uyghur Muslims or Tibetan Buddhists, when you get the larger population to lose their sense of shock and outrage and repudiation of that kind of hatred, that's when you can really sort of persecute and harm a vulnerable minority with a lot of impunity.
They also shared how the United States can respond.
We can use global Magnitsky sanctions against individuals and leadership. You can use broad sanctions against the entire government, or you can even go as far as what President Trump did in Nigeria and bomb places.
The summit continues Tuesday, and organizers are already looking ahead to Wednesday's Congressional Advocacy Day, when participants will take their message to Capitol Hill. They're planning to do so through briefings, a public press conference, and meetings with lawmakers focused on protecting victims of religious persecution. From Washington, D.C., Chris Bobb, NTD News.
And the creator of Notepad++ says his software now has stronger security controls after it was targeted by hackers. He says he believes the Chinese regime was involved in the cyber attack. NTD's David Lamb reports.
The developer of Notepad++ said on Monday that hackers connected to the Chinese regime hijacked his software's hosting platform and sent malicious updates to users. The breach occurred between June and December 2025. Not to be confused with Microsoft's Notepad, Notepad++ is a similar text editor that's been in operation for more than 2 decades. It's popular among the computer programming community globally for its extra features. Don Ho, a developer based in Paris, said that according to security researchers, the perpetrators behind the cyber attack were likely associated with the Chinese regime. Ho said this would explain the highly selective targeting observed during the campaign. This cyber attack comes amid the artificial intelligence tech race. U.S. lawmakers have repeatedly cited national security concerns posed by foreign adversaries, including the Chinese Communist Party and DeepSeek, the AI company based in Hangzhou, China.
One example, DeepSeek, which used distilled U.S. models to advance its own platform, now linked to censorship, propaganda, and military use.
The developer of Notepad++ said that even after it cut off access to its servers, the perpetrators were able to redirect people to malicious servers. They did so by exploiting the update verification process in older versions of the program. The security was strengthened in December to block further attacks. The Notepad++ website is now on a new hosting platform with stronger security practices. David Lamb, NTD News.
And now what happens north of the border can affect Americans too, especially on trade or security. And over the weekend, rallies took place in several Canadian cities, with residents voicing growing anxiety over the economy and the rising cost of living. Here are the details.
Canada free! Canada free! Canada first! Canada first!
Life is more expensive than ever before. We have long lines at food banks. There are no jobs right now either. So that's a really dangerous situation.
Houses are extremely expensive. It's very hard to get a mortgage.
Healthcare is broken. Then they did this crazy experiment here with legalizing really hard drugs. The country has gone straight down the hill.
In Canada, I'm finding a lot of our rights are being infringed upon. They're taking rights away. They're taking away our access to information, and they're controlling the narrative, the reduction of our rights, the reduction in the access to information. All these things are very troubling, and they are eating away at what I feel democracy is.
Protesters also pointed to the government's trade ties with the Chinese Communist Party, warning of hidden political risks and urging Canada to stand firm on democratic values.
His New World Order is to bring in communism and to make deals with every other country but the country that we should be having our deal with, which is the United States. Most of our economy is attached to that country. All of our jobs and our security is attached to. We are more aligned with the United States than any other country in the world.
The communist government, they're not our friends. I'm sorry, they're not our friends. As far as I'm concerned, that's a dictatorship there too, right, in China. So we want to make deals with a dictator? I don't think so.
From the economy and immigration to core values, people at the rally said they're worried about the direction Canada is heading.
You know, I'm standing here for my kids and my grandkids, because if we don't watch out, there will be no Canada left, in my opinion. Every country has a deal with Trump except Canada. Why? Let's work together. Let's get the ball rolling and, get the pipelines going. We have to make money. Healthcare, benefits, they don't come for free. We need revenue.
We need thoughtful, measured immigration. We want Canada to stay a peaceful country.
NTD News, Canada.
And now, still to come. A boy in Western Australia swims to shore after his family is swept out to sea. The 13-year-old recounts the hours-long experience. And days before the championship game, the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks met with media during the Super Bowl opening night, the traditional start to game week festivities after the break. And now NASA announced early this morning it would be delaying its mission to send 4 astronauts around the moon. It comes after engineers at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida detected a hydrogen leak at the base of the Space Launch System rocket. It happened during a wet dress rehearsal. That's where launch day practice runs are conducted. NASA announced it would forego February's launch window and will now aim for dates in March, with additional 8 dates in April. The Artemis 2 mission will be the Orion capsule's second trip to space, but the first time carrying humans. A successful launch will be a crucial step toward returning astronauts to the surface of the moon. And Netflix executive Ted Sarandos faces a Senate hearing today over his company's proposed acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery. Lawmakers are expected to question him about how the company's $82.7 billion deal would affect competition in the streaming industry. Warner Bros. Chief Strategy Officer Bruce Campbell is expected to testify as well. Now, the Senate can't stop the acquisition, but the hearing will allow lawmakers to ask questions about how the transaction would affect consumers, employees, and competitors. The Justice Department is reviewing the deal, along with a competing hostile bid from Paramount Skydance. Paramount has argued it will have an easier regulatory path to approval, but Warner Brothers has repeatedly rejected Paramount's offers. And the New England Patriots and Seattle Seahawks kicked off Super Bowl festivities last night on opening night. Instead of the usual packed house atmosphere that draws thousands of fans, this year's toned-down event unfolded inside a room at the San Jose Convention Center. Some of the players and head coaches shared their thoughts before the big game.
Well, again, I take great pride in coaching these guys and seeing these guys have success. It's why I do what I do. I enjoy watching guys improve. I enjoy watching guys take advantage of opportunities, and this certainly is a great opportunity.
I just, when you talk about the vision of our team, that it's like this. We want people to look at the city of Seattle, our community, our football team as something to be proud of, but something where we can bring people together, and get the best version of everybody involved. And people look at our team and say, how the heck do they get that done up there, and it takes everybody, so it's someone that can bring people together and go towards a common goal. And those are the things that you remember the journey, and all those relationships you build along the way is what makes it really special.
Now, the Seahawks are returning to the Super Bowl for the first time since losing to New England in the championship game 11 years ago. The Patriots, considered the underdogs in this matchup, are pursuing a record 7th Super Bowl title and their first since 2019. The big game kicks off this Sunday at 6:30 p.m. at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California. And now a boy in Western Australia is being called a hero for swimming to shore after he, his mother, and siblings were swept out to sea. 13-year-old Austin Appleby recounted the hours-long experience.
I was very puffed out, but I couldn't feel how tired I was. I don't know, I was more thinking of a lot of things that, was happening in my life. I think at one point I was thinking of Thomas the Tank Engine. Trying to get the happiest things in my head. Trying to make it through.
Austin had been with his mother, Joanne, his 12-year-old brother, Bo, and his 8-year-old sister, Grace. The family had been using a kayak and paddle boards when calm weather turned windy, sweeping them out to sea. They soon found themselves about 2.5 miles from shore with only life jackets and no way to communicate. Once he reached the beach, Austin had to run another couple miles to find a phone. And then, using a boat and a helicopter, emergency services were able to locate the rest of his family and bring them safely to shore. What a story. As always, if you have any feedback in this show, maybe you have some tips for us, send us an email, news.today@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'll cover more news right after this break.